Hi, my name is Craig Fowler. I'm sitting here with my friend Lema Gerata. Lema is a Gumuz guy that we've been working with for probably 18 years. Allison and I and our three kids have lived and worked here in Ethiopia for a very long time. And when we first started working and planting churches and doing health post work in Ethiopia, we lived in a little village, in a remote village called Aygali. Lema was there with us at that time. Lema is a nurse and worked with Allison at the health post. Today I want to tell you the story of another guy, though, that Lema and I both know pretty well. His name is Hamsalu. Hamsalu actually lives right now in the capital city of our state, a place called Asosa. Actually, Lema and I are sitting in Asosa right now, just outside of the church, one of the churches that we've planted here. And I would like to be able to show you an interview I had with Hamsalu, but that interview was by phone because Hamsalu is actually not in Asosa right now. He's in Aygali because he's getting married this month. So I'm just gonna have to tell you his story. A couple days ago I called Hamsalu and talked to him on the phone and got his story. I knew his story before, but I got a lot of the details of his story. And I just want to tell you his story because it's a really cool one. When we first moved to Aygali, this remote village in the middle of nowhere, Hamsalu was about 7, 8 years old, and he got to be pretty good friends with Zain, our oldest son. Our oldest son was 5 at the time. And when I talked to Hamsalu on the phone, I asked him if he remembered the first time he ever met Zain, and he did. I was a little surprised he did, but I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but he did. He said that a few of his friends and him, Hamsalu, were going to the river to go play, and they saw this little white kid playing in the sand, essentially with something, and they walked up to see what he was playing with. They were very curious. They'd actually never seen a white person before that, so this is a pretty amazing event for them, see this little white kid. And the kid, my son Zain, was playing with these little Matchbox cars, and it was amazing to him because when I talked to him on the phone, he said, I'd hardly ever seen an actual car, but to see a little miniature car was just astounding. That's how his friendship with Zain began. He got to know Zain in a lot of different contexts. Zain started going to school once a week, the little school there, the village school, so that he could make friends and learn the language and play soccer and do those sorts of things. And in the process of just going to school, of hanging out with village kids, he got to know Hamsalu pretty well, and Hamsalu became one of his better friends. When I talked to Hamsalu, Hamsalu said that Zain was very influential in his life, and for two reasons specifically. One, Hamsalu was first introduced to church through Zain. Many of the people that Zain played with and hung out with, the kids he played with, he invited to church. And actually, it's interesting because Lema and I, we started that church. Lema was with us at the time, and we started this little church in Aygali. And it's just cool to see how all these years later, people who had first heard the gospel through that church are now still involved in the church. Hamsalu is one of those. So as Zain and Hamsalu began their friendship, there were really two things that Hamsalu said that Zain influenced him with. One was introduced him to church. Eventually he became a Christian, was baptized. But the second was really interesting. As I was talking to Hamsalu, he said that Zain made him think about the future more than he had ever thought. In Hamsalu's mind, he was growing up in this rural village in the middle of nowhere. His dad, his uncles, everybody he knew were farmers. And it wasn't until he met Zain, this white kid from some other part of the world, that he even thought that maybe there's something outside of this little village life in Aygali. And what was interesting about Hamsalu is he was a really smart kid. So the school in Aygali goes up to 8th grade, and his family, because he did so well in school, decided to go ahead and send him to a school in a place called Bulan, which is about 4 hours away from Aygali. And he went to high school there. Eventually he was accepted to a university in Jijiga, where he got a degree. He actually got a degree in computer science, which is a really interesting degree to get for a rural Gumuz kid. And then eventually after that, he got a job with the government in the Information and Technology Office here in Asosa. So this is the state capital of our area. This is probably 500, maybe 300 miles, not 500, 300 miles from Aygali. So it's a long way, but it's the state capital. And it's a big shift, a big transition for a kid who grew up in a rural village in, near the Sudanese border in Ethiopia. And what's really cool is that it was through his relationship with Zane that many of these opportunities came up for Hamsalu as he got connected with the church, as he started thinking about the world in a wider way. And right now, actually this month, Hamsalu is not here in Asosa because he's back in Aygali in his home area to get married in the traditional way. And he's getting married to one of the daughters of one of the pastors that we work with. Actually, it's Lema's brother. So he's getting married to Lema's niece, I guess it is, in Aygali. So it's just interesting to see all the relationships come full circle. I wanted to tell you this story because there's lots of stories in the way in which our ministry has affected a lot of Ethiopians, and especially the Gumuz people. A lot of people have come to Christ, just a lot of cool stories. But this is one in which the missionary in this case who made the most difference was not an adult, but a kid. And I think it's just a cool story to show how that Zane, as a 5-year-old kid, growing up, the people he met, the influence that he had, being a missionary kid in a rural village. And I really want to encourage you to keep praying for Hamsalu because Hamsalu is now a member of our church here in Asosa. A few years ago, CMF planted actually 4 churches in this area, and Hamsalu, being a government worker now in Asosa, in this big town, got involved again with our church because he had a history with working with our church and being a part of our church in Aygali. When he first started at our church here, he was a member of the choir. Eventually he became a deacon, and just this last year he became an elder. And he's pretty young for being an elder. He's probably 27 years old, something like that. But he became an elder because he'd been a Christian for a long time. A lot of the people in the churches here have not been a Christian a very long time, but since Hamsalu grew up in our church in Aygali, he'd been a Christian a long time, and so he was one of those candidates that they chose to be an elder. I want to just encourage you to think about our ministry here. We do a lot of different things: plant churches, health work, prison work, campus ministry, etc. But this is a little snippet, a little story of a kid who grew up, was involved in our ministry, and now is making a difference in a completely different area as an elder, as a leader in our churches. And I look forward to seeing how God is going to use Hamsalu in the future. Now that he's not just an elder, he's also now a family man, and it'll be interesting to see how God uses him to grow the church here in Ethiopia and specifically in Asosa. Thank you.